Hey there, it's Melissa Brunetti, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Karma podcast.
Hey there, Karma Crew. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Mind Your Own Karma, the Adoption Chronicles. Today I have Jenny Becknell on the show. She is a birth mother and adoptive mother. Let me tell you a little bit more about Jenny. She is a wife of 28 and a half years, a mother of 6, and a grandmother of 5. She is a birth mother and adoptive parent. Last year, she and her husband adopted a boy who is 17, and her oldest is a 31-year-old only daughter that she had an open adoption with. Jenny says the open door adoption with her daughter included face-to-face visits and that she was included and welcomed by the adoptive family for the first 18 years of her daughter's life. Because of her experience as a birth mother, she feels it's very important for the correct information to be given to girls who find themselves at a crossroads with what to do with an unexpected pregnancy. As an adoptive parent, she says that adoptive parents should know the truth about adoption and stresses how important it is for them to get the education and healing they need from the reasons they are seeking to adopt before they do so. Jenny says this is her story, her experiences, and her journey, and she is sharing this to help others. She realizes that in sharing her version, she'll be talking about others that may have a differing account of the events discussed in this episode, and that they have the right to their experience as well. Here is my interview with Jenny Becknell. We are welcoming Jenny Becknell to the show today. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. So I always love having people like you on the show because you're a birth mother and an adoptive parent. So there's always this combination that always makes for an interesting interview because you've got experiences from 2 different angles. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely.
So let's start by talking about your pregnancy and what were the circumstances of that?
Okay, so I was 18 years old. I had gone away to college on a soccer scholarship. And at the time, I'm one of 7 children, the second oldest of 7 children. And at the time that I went away to college, my, at the time, 16-year-old sister had just found out she was pregnant right before I left to go to school.
Oh, wow.
And strangely enough, I was going to a small college about an hour and a half away from where I grew up. And the father of her child was going to the same school that I was going to. And we didn't even know this ahead of time.
Oh my gosh.
And so in because of that, I went away to school, but I didn't know anyone where I was going. And so because of that, I did kind of like communicate with him because he was the father of my sister's child, and they were still together kind of at the time. We didn't really know that my sister was even dating anyone until we found out she was pregnant. But so in the midst of that, I met my daughter's father through this person.
Okay.
And so through my niece's biological father. And so there was a lot going on, obviously, at home with my parents, and they were really trying to influence my sister to have an adoption plan with her child because she was a junior in high school. And my sister was not interested in that at all. Like, she was very outspoken about it. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And so I kind of came into this very naive 18-year-old thought process of I was certainly never get pregnant. I mean, 2 people can't get pregnant in the same family at the same time. I mean, I don't know. That was definitely something that went through my head. I do remember
Right.
thinking that. And so when I found out that I was pregnant, I was completely shocked. So anyway, I'd met the guy that I was dating. I had dated him for I don't know, 6 or 7. For some reason, I always said 9 months. And now I'm looking back at the timing and I'm like, I think I was exaggerating the time a little bit. But so I guess it was like 6 or 7 months he and I had been dating. And I think it was around the 9-month period where I actually found out I was pregnant. And so He and I had just recently broken up right before I found out that I was pregnant.
Oh gosh.
And so when I found out, of course, I told him, I called him and he came over and I shared it with him and he was so happy. Like he was
Wow.
like, this is great. We can do this. Like he had this whole plan. That, he would go to school during the day, I could go to school at night or vice versa, and I could work when he wasn't. And I was like, well, somewhere along the way, like we have to raise a baby too. Like we can't just both go to school and work and not take care of our child. And of course, in the back of my mind, looking back now, I realized that in the back of my mind, I also had all of this information about what was going on with my sister and what my parents were telling her. And they were already telling her, like, you cannot bring your baby home. We are not going to raise your child. You are the
Wow.
parent.
Mm.
If you're going to do this, you're out of here. Like, this baby can't be here. So I already knew all of that. I didn't even have to have those conversations.
Right.
And so that was in my mind. And I just thought, we had just broken up and I had a lot of like trust issues already at that age, just with relationships and men, due to my childhood and kind of growing up. And, I was not treated very well as a child especially from my father. He just had a really rough background. And, I've come to a lot of peace with things in my life with my relationship with him, but he was an abusive man. And at the time, like that really affected me way more than I had realized that it did. And so I just didn't trust. I didn't trust anything that anyone said. I didn't believe that he would stay around and, raise this child with me. So I ended up leaving school at the end of that semester and going back to where I grew up and moving back in with my parents, shared the news with them. And I don't remember a lot of what happened in between, but somewhere along the way, about a month or so before my daughter was born on October the 10th, sometime in September, I made the decision I actually met her parents, the people that were going to adopt her. So I didn't even realize that till I was reading a notebook because I kept a whole notebook for her the whole time I was pregnant with her, writing her notes and things like that.
Mm.
Um, and so I just read it the other day and realized it was only a month before she was born that I had even met them, which is crazy to me. But anyway, so ultimately I made that decision. And her birth father was supportive of it. He was
Mm.
not like, he didn't fight me on it. Like he knew what the decision was. He wasn't really available to me a lot during my pregnancy. Once I moved back home, he didn't really contact me a whole lot. We didn't talk. We were both young. I don't blame him. He and I have a wonderful relationship still to this day.
Mm.
And we've healed, like, like we just get along great. We always have gotten along really well. And so there's no anger. We talk, we communicate, we still have conversations to this day about the decision that I always said the decision I made. Just recently, he was like, hey, you didn't make that on your own. Like, we made this decision together. And I have, because I was apologizing to him for taking the opportunity away from him to, be a parent to her. And he said, you don't need to apologize to me. Like, so anyway, there's just a lot of peace there. And he's very protective of my feelings, and he cares a lot about just making sure that I know that this wasn't something I just did by myself, and that he has his part in it too.
Yeah.
And he has a relationship with our daughter as well, to this day. So anyway, help me narrow down,
Yeah.
because I'm
Well,
sticking to,
I
yeah.
want to go back to when you told your parents. Like
Okay.
when you told them, were you already like, I'm putting her up for adoption, so don't, or like, did you already have that plan in place? So when you told them, do you remember what their reaction was?
I don't really remember, but I kind of feel like I did have a plan because I don't remember their reaction. I remember that it was a phone call. I was with two of my friends. I do
Oh,
remember
okay.
that I called them on the phone and told them. And I remember just wanting to say it and hang up. Like I
Yeah.
didn't want their reaction. I didn't, um, but I don't remember when I started thinking about adoption, but I think I started thinking about it pretty quickly. Um, just based on like I had no job, I was away at school, I had nowhere to live. It's like,
Yeah. And
what
like
was
you
I gonna?
said, your sister's whole predicament kind of,
Yes.
kind of helped steer that too, I'm sure. So, so no support from the family then. And it kind of sounded like you had already kind of made the plan, but you did an open adoption.
Yes.
And so how did that work? Did you go through an agency? Did they
Yes,
show you a bunch of pictures of people? Like, well, how does that process look? What does it look like?
yes, I went through Catholic Charities. It was Catholic Social Services at the time. I was going to counseling there during my pregnancy. I was seeing a counselor. And then I was going to like different classes where birth mothers would talk and adoptive parents would come in and talk. I remember I did a couple of those things before and after she was born. Um, but I was going to counseling there, and at some point during that counseling is kind of when I guess, made that decision that that's what I was planning on doing, what I was planning on doing. Um, yeah, was that your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So were you able to pick the parents then? Like, or,
Yes.
okay.
I don't remember how many books I looked at. I do remember that I looked at her parents' book. I don't remember if they were the first, only remember if there was 20. I don't remember that
Mhm.
at all. Um, I have a lot of memory loss. I really do. Like I think I was just protecting myself. I don't know. It's been like that my whole life. I don't
Yeah.
remember the first 12 years of my life. And then there's like pieces that I just don't remember. Like I said, even just recently going through and reading and looking at some of the things that I'd kept for her, I'm like, wow, I walked her down the aisle when she got baptized with her
Mm,
parents.
wow.
Don't have any memory of that at all.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah.
anyway, just little things like that.
I was just going to
But
say the big things. It's like the bigger things. It's like
you would,
you're not, remembering. I have that too a little bit. But how are
yeah.
you feeling during your pregnancy? I mean, I guess maybe knowing that it was going to be an open adoption, it was a little bit easier. I don't know. Like, how are you feeling?
Yeah, like I remember the first time I met her parents and I just was very comforted by them. I remember being very comforted by the book that I was looking at and the family because my daughter's biracial. And so I was very comforted by the just the pictures and that they had friends that had adopted children also, which I didn't know a lot about adoption at all. I didn't know anyone who was adopted growing up or anything like that. Um, but I was just comforted by them having people in this booklet that were of different cultures and they had also had adopted another little girl who was 4 at the time and they had adopted her from Korea. So I was really excited that she was going to have a sibling because I grew up with such a big family. And then I also just real I don't know, felt really drawn to them. They were very educated, intelligent people. Her mom is so comforting and she's so calm. I grew up with this big family and it was chaotic and
Yeah.
loud all the time, and she was so peaceful when she spoke and just she was calming to my heart in so many ways. um I was madly in love with my baby the whole time I was pregnant. I would read books to her. I would sing to her. I constantly had my hands on my belly, talking to her. Oh, it was the greatest experience. Like I adored this baby. And I just wanted what was best for her. That's all I wanted. And I was told by everyone around me that that it was to place her for adoption and to give her a family that could give her experiences that I couldn't. I wanted her to be raised in a two-parent family. I didn't want her to have to go back and forth an hour and a half each way to see her father. Even though I knew he was such a cool, like fun guy, that I knew that he would be a good father
Yeah.
if he chose to do that. Because he was a good guy. He's super funny, super fun. But I didn't know how reliable he was going to be, because he wasn't up to that point an extremely reliable guy. So he just, because he said something didn't mean he really followed through with it, even though mostly everything he said sounded really great.
Yeah.
The follow through was what I was kind of more
Right.
concerned about.
Right.
And so, yeah, so that's kind of where it all started with, as far as her family goes. And I
So were
decided
they
that I
there?
wanted to.
Were they there when you gave birth, the adoptive parents?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted her mom to be in the room with me, because I wanted her to be able to experience her child being born. And I
Mm,
knew like she didn't get to have that experience with her oldest daughter. And so I wanted her to have that. And so I asked her to be in the room with me. I didn't want her dad to be in the room with me because that just felt weird to
yeah.
me. But I did want her mom in there. But I did hold her first, and just adored her. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. And um, it was overwhelming. But then I wanted to share that with, her mom. I wanted her mom to be the second person to hold her. And so she was there. My mom was in the room, and my best friend, she was my support system at the time. She was also in the room with me when she was born. So I had,
Yeah.
supportive people there as well.
It's a lot of
I had
dynamics going on in that room
I
to
did,
try
yeah. And
and
I
juggle it.
was reading like all of these visitors. Like I had all of my sisters came in, my dad, I had friends, I had ex-boyfriends come and visit me. Was in the hospital. I mean, literally everyone under the sun came into the room either right before or after she was born, because I had a very long labor with her. So, yeah, but she was there, and so that part of it was nice. And then even her grandma, her mom's mom, was able to come to the hospital and visit. There was a little bit of a complication with, they had told me that she was going to have to go to a foster home. And I
Oh,
guess they
wow.
must have told me that during counseling, but I didn't remember that. And so when they said, "Oh, well, the foster family's going to come visit today," I'm like, "Whoa, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
N- There's no, that's not happening." And so there was a little bit of a freak out moment, I think, behind the scenes. They weren't really sharing it with me at the time, but where I was like, "No, no, no, this is not, my daughter is not going home with anyone else but either me or her mom. Like
Did they
we're her."
explain why they do that?
Because they weren't they weren't foster parents. So I guess there was a period of time from when I had her until she was officially adopted, that she had to be in a foster home.
That's so weird.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, most of us we've talked about that because I was in a foster home for a while just because my mom was trying to decide what she was going to do. But there's other adoptees that have had that same thing where, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks for no real reason that we can figure out why we were put there. So I was just wondering if they gave you like a reason for why. I mean, especially since you already had people picked out, like what was the delay, Because I mean, we always kind of
Yeah,
wonder that.
the only thing that I can think is there must be some period of time, because even I know with my son that I adopted, we knew that we wanted to adopt him, but we had to become foster parents first before we could adopt him if we
Mm,
wanted him to be in our home. And we
okay.
did. So we had to become foster parents so that he could be with us before the adoption was final. So I guess it was the same kind of
That's so weird.
situation, but they were able to really expedite it and speed it up. I don't know what they did
So
behind the
did your daughter
scenes.
go to the foster family?
No, she did not.
Okay. Okay.
She ended up going home with her parents.
And how
So I
many
don't know
days
what
old
they
was
did. They
she?
did
Yeah.
something. They
How
did
many
some
days
shuffling.
old was she when she went with them?
She went home straight from the hospital with them.
Oh,
So
okay.
we ended up leaving the hospital, and we did this, as the Catholic Charities did this adoption ritual where I said, I don't know, it was a paper that I had, and it was like the birth mother says this to the adoptive parents, and the adoptive parents say this back. It's kind of this um, giving your child, and trusting them with her, and trusting them to love her, and trusting, all of that
Mhm.
kind of thing is
Yeah.
kind of what I remember. Um, and then they did, like, I don't know, like maybe a blessing or something like that over me. That's kind of what I'm remembering. Um, but then our adoption was so open that I left the hospital with my mom in a car right behind them in their car with our daughter. And so they drove in their car and I drove in my car, and we went to her house. Like, I went
Oh,
straight to their house.
wow.
And I was there for a few hours before I left. And then I was there every single day. I have a journal that I was keeping. All of this stuff I just recently pulled out and reread. And I was there every single day for like the first 10 days of her life. I went from my house to her house every day. And then after that, it was like 3 times a week or 4 times a week. And that was for like 4 or 5 months. And then it would go to once a week. And then it would be kind of sporadic. There was no like paper that we ever signed saying anything. There was
Wow.
nothing signed that I remember signing, but it was just like a mutual agreement on how this was going to go and how open it was going to be. And um, it wasn't until, strangely, until around her 18th birthday that it hit me that I had never even realized that that was all because of her parents, that I was able to have, so much contact with her. Like,
Yeah.
I never realized until I heard a few other people's stories about how they would just stop talking. And sometimes it was because of the birth parents. The birth mothers just couldn't do it anymore, and they would stop, contacting the family. They would just stop showing up. And sometimes the, adoptive parents would say, "We're not doing this anymore. This is the end of this
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
relation." Yeah. And so the way it was explained to me at Catholic Charities during the counseling that I received was that it was more the birth mothers that ended the relationship than the adoptive parents.
Really?
So I don't, that's what I was told.
Wow.
And I knew that that was never going to happen for me. Like, I never felt like I had enough. Like, I never felt like I had enough. And I think that's part of like what happens during that relationship is you don't say things that you might be thinking that aren't always positive, because that those people are the ones that are allowing me to have that relationship with her. And if I say anything wrong, if I do anything wrong, um, they could just say, "We're done. You're not doing this." So it was in the back of my mind that that could happen, because I do know that there was a lot of times where I would think like, this feels a little like controlling, like I would ask, I would want to see her, and it felt like at a certain point that it was like I was only allowed to have like 2 hours. Like, if we were going to be doing something and it might take longer than
Mm.
2 hours, that she was like, "Well, no, we need to pick her up at 7 when they drop her off at 5," or something like that. And
And
I
that was
think that
after, I mean, she wasn't, that was that before she was 18 or after?
that was before. Yeah,
Okay.
like when she was younger, she would come, like it was a very open adoption. So I would go to their house all the time. She would come to my house. She would spend the night with me. Her sister would
Wow.
come. Her sister would spend the night with me sometimes. I don't think her sister spent the night with me a whole lot, maybe once or twice, but she did come over,
Mhm.
and their friends would come with them sometimes. I was a director of a daycare. I own my own daycare. My life is children. I love children. So, um, that's always been my thing. I have an early childhood education degree. And so, um, that's just always where I'm happy and peaceful is when I'm with kids. So, um,
Do you think that
one
they
of my granddaughters.
were they scared that maybe like when you took her, you were bringing her back or something? Well, I mean, they let you spend the night with you, so that couldn't be it. Why do you think they were like starting to kind of control the time and
I don't know because the one thing I don't know, I mean, I shared all of my thoughts and feelings with them. I don't know, was she crying when we would like, what was she asking them questions that I don't know if she was asking them questions. I don't know
yeah.
if, what was happening at home. Like she would tell, her mom would tell me sometimes, like I do remember at one point, and I don't know how old she was, where every single time her mom would come to my house to pick her up, Anna was really angry and mad at her when they would leave.
Mhm.
And um, I don't remember exactly how old she was when that happened. Maybe 8, 9, 10, 11-ish, maybe. But I do remember talking to my counselor again from when she was really young. And we had, her mom also had a relationship with my counselor. And so the three of us talked and came up with a plan that it would be best for me to take her home instead of have her mom come and pick her up because I would be leaving her instead of her leaving me, and that maybe that would make it easier for her. And so there was definitely things that were going on,
Yeah.
for sweet little Anna that I just didn't know about. And I'm sure there's more that I didn't know about than what, they ever talked to me about. I was an open book about my feelings, to a certain degree. Um, I didn't ever really tell anybody that I dreamed every day about being her only mother. Like no one knew I
Mhm.
was thinking that. I
Yeah.
didn't share that with anybody. Nobody. It
Yeah.
was all in my head. I mean, I lived, a fantasy world of, being her mom and her mom not being her mom. I was so jealous of her mom that she got to, see every little thing that she did. But her mom was so good to me, Melissa. I mean, she was so good to me. Even when Anna was little, and she was first learning how to crawl and her first tooth popped in and her first word and, saying dada, saying mama, like all of those things, crawling, walking, taking her first steps, pulling herself up on a table, whatever it was, all of those things, she would wait until I was there. I picked up on it at some point, but she would wait till I was there and allowed me to believe that that was the first time she did it.
Oh, wow.
And like she was just such an amazing blessing to me. Like she was such an amazing woman. She was so calm. She showed me that, you could spill milk and not get screamed and yelled at and, told how stupid you are. That when you spill your milk, you can just say, "Oh, look what happened. Your milk spilled all over the floor. Now we have to clean it up.
Yeah.
Who's going to clean it up? Are you going to get a rag or am I going to help?" Like she was so good. She was so good. And I learned so much just watching her parent, Anna, and her sister. And it was a beautiful relationship. It was beautiful. And I still missed my baby every day. I still dreamed about being her mother. My heart ached all the time. But I enjoyed and I cherished, every moment that I had with her.
Yeah. So you kind of alluded that when she turned 18, that the relationship kind of changed between you and the adoptive parents. What happened there?
I'm not 100% sure. I know it was when she turned 18, I remember it being a complete trauma moment for me all over again. Like it was hard. It was hard, hard. Um, I remember it was so like obvious to me that like now she was going to have the option of having a relationship with me without it being facilitated by her mom. And so it was like scary. Like, what if she chooses to not have me around? What if,
Yeah.
and I remember having a conversation with her mom and saying that. I remember having that conversation, like, what if she doesn't want me? And I never really felt like that. I mean, she and I are so much alike and we're so close that I didn't really believe that, but it was scary. Um, and I remember talking to her and saying, like, what if she decides she doesn't want to have a relationship with me? And um, I had made a video for her, a big, long video with all these beautiful songs about her life with her birth father and I. And so it was just like her birth family story. It wasn't about her adoptive family. And I shared that video. Her mom never said, wow, that was beautiful. Like it took me like hours, like I don't even know, weeks,
Yeah. Yeah.
months to get that prepared. Um, she didn't have anything to say about it. I don't think she liked that video.
Mhm.
Um, After that is when things started to come out like you didn't do the work, you didn't do the work for her. So I don't know if that video made her think that I was like disillusioned that like her birth father and I were her family only, like they weren't included because they weren't included in the video. It was all pictures of all of us together,
Mhm.
of her with us, the times
Yeah.
that she was with me, and um, pictures she wrote me, and pictures of her birth father and I together because we're both really corny people, and so when we would be together, which we would get together even before she met him at 5, he and I would get together and do photo shoots so that
Oh,
she could have that.
oh, nice.
We were just goofy, and all the pictures are silly. We're always silly when we're together, and so there was all those pictures, and then anytime we were together, we would get a picture of the three of us, and we did that for her 18th birthday. That we spent the day together for her 18th birthday. Um, so I don't know. I mean, there's a lot. I wish I knew.
Yeah, you could
I
speculate on some things, but no
Yeah, you can
concrete.
go
Yeah.
all over the place trying to figure it out, but
Yeah.
I don't
What's your
really know.
relationship now with your daughter?
We're very close. She has 2 children, my grandchildren. They call me Nana, which that was one of the things that I really loved that, at a certain point, like I mean, at what point is an open adoption over? Like, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, it's kind of weird.
right.
Like, I don't have an open adoption plan with my daughter anymore. She's just my daughter, and we have a relationship, and
What does she
um,
call you?
she calls me Jenny. And she'll probably always call me Jenny.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not really okay with that, but I have to be. I
Right.
know that it's a respectful thing. I know that, I mean, she calls me mom sometimes. She'll definitely, like when she's talking to my sons, and she's here, she'll say, go ask mom if blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and she'll introduce me sometimes. Like I was on the phone with her last night and some of her friends were at the house, and she was like, this is my mama. My mama's on the phone. This is my birth mother. Like she'll say things like that. But on a general everyday basis, she calls me Jenny.
Yeah.
Um,
So, what do you wish your daughter knew?
um, I wish that she knew, which I think she does. I think that she knows how much I love her. I wish that she knew how valuable she was, how worthy she is. I hope she knows that I love her for exactly who she is. Um, I hope that she knows that she doesn't owe anything to me. She doesn't owe anything to her mother. Um, she didn't ask for this. This was not her choice. And I don't feel like she should have to um, be responsible for the decisions that I made, regardless of what my reasons were. The pain that she has from me making the decision that I made to not parent her, um, that's she has a right to be angry with me. Um, if that's what she wants to do, she has a right to have a relationship with me or not. And the same with her parents. Like she doesn't owe them anything. She doesn't we both have our own separate roles in her life, and we're both valuable to her, and she has a right to love both of us. She has two sets of parents, and that's just the way that it is. And that should be respected all the way around, on our end, on her end, on her parents. And, like everyone should understand that these were choices that were made. We made choices. I made a choice to place my child for adoption, whether I was incorrect with some of the information I had, whether I understood the primal wound, which I did not. If I did, I would have made a totally different decision. But that doesn't mean that I don't still think that she has wonderful, fantastic parents that she would never not want in her life. But she doesn't need to be grateful for other people's choices. She doesn't need
Yeah.
to be grateful to me. She doesn't need to be grateful to them. Um, her adoptive parents' choices to adopt somebody else's child, to be their child, regardless of the intention that they had when we made those decisions, she doesn't owe those things to. She doesn't owe us anything, I
Right.
guess, is the big thing. And that I want her to just embrace who she is, and to be able to be free from feeling like she's supposed to do this or do that,
Yeah.
that I just wish I could release that for her, because I know that she feels that obligation, um, because she loves her parents so much. And I want her to have that. I want
Yeah.
her to have that freedom. Yeah.
What is there anything that you wish her adoptive mom knew?
I wish that she knew that I love her, and that regardless of the differences that we might have, that I would choose to have a relationship with her over focusing on the differences that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am grateful to her for allowing me to be part of Anna's life as much as I was. Um, I love her. I miss her. She was a huge influence in my life. She had the most precious gift that I've ever been given, besides my other children, of course. Um, and I miss her. I miss her a lot. I miss our conversations. I miss the peace that she always brought to me. Um, yeah. And she was a absolutely fantastic mother. She's a fantastic grandmother to our grandchildren. Um, I know that she loves them so much, and I do too. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's like this could have been a much different story. I still don't think our story is over, and I'm still looking forward to it changing again.
Yeah. It's a good outlook. I want to switch gears a little bit because you adopted a teenage boy. So tell us about those circumstances. How did that come about?
So that happened because my sister, the same sister that I was talking about earlier, she ended up parenting her daughter. My parents did end up letting her daughter live at their house with them for a while. She had a lot of support by all of her siblings, her parents. Um, And so she did raise her. And she was a single mother her whole life. Her father was not part of her life at all. Um, but she decided once our daughters are 31 years old, our daughters are 6 months apart. So they're older now, and her daughter's married and has children. And she decided that she wanted to foster to adopt a sibling group.
Mhm.
Because our dad was in foster care when he was younger.
Mm.
And he was split from his siblings. And so she wanted to help in that situation and keep sibling groups together. And she knew that older children were harder to find families. And so that's where it started off with her. And because of the situation, she decided she was going to, the foster I guess whatever agency she was going through decided they were going to start with the youngest child and then add the next one and add the next one because there was a lot of behavioral issues and
Mhm.
problems, and it seemed that the
Yeah.
more they were together, the more problems there were. And so that's kind of how it started. Well, it only lasted a few months, and my sister was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, my family had met him and we loved him. And he was like I'm a very affectionate, I don't know if you can tell this, but I'm a very affectionate person and a goo goo gaga kind of girl. And that's what he needed. He was 15, but that's what he needed. And my sister is not like that at all. Very, very opposite. We are very opposite of each other. Um, and so she recognized that, and he just thrived when he was with us. And I have a son that's 6 days younger than him, so they were buds, like they got along really well.
Oh, yeah.
And so my husband and I just talked about it, and my sister was like, I don't think I can do this. I think I'm going to have to send him back to the group home. And my husband and I were like, no, that's not going to happen. I was super excited that my husband was on board with it because it was not anything we had ever discussed. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to do foster parenting because I always wanted to take care of children while their families got their lives together. And so I was super excited about being part of that at any point in my life, but my husband was never really on board with me. And so he had fallen in love with him too. And so my husband was like, oh, we'll do whatever we need to do. So that's kind of how it started. And so we became foster parents, and we live in Savannah, Georgia, and he was from Alabama. So we were driving 4 hours back
Mm.
and forth because we wanted him to be with us as much as he could. But while we were doing the classes, he could only be here for so long before he had to go back. So that's kind of how that all took place. And
Did your
he's
sister keep his siblings?
no, she never even got them.
Oh, she didn't.
That's
Okay.
Yeah, so that was kind of how it started. How the breakdown happened was the very first time she took him to go visit his brother. She was like, oh, like immediately she was like, I
That's
can't
not going to
do
work.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely not going to work.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the whole breakdown, it just we were encouraging her and trying to be there, but it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Did becoming an adoptive parent change how you looked at your daughter's adoption at all?
Um, no, I think being a birth mother has been the reason that I view things with him the way that I do.
Mm.
Um, I hope my hope is that that is a benefit to him, because I've told him like your mom is your mom. We aren't calling her anything but your mom. We don't need to say she's your birth mom. She's your mom, and
Yeah.
I'm your mom. Like
Yeah.
and I want him to have a relationship with his siblings, and I don't want to be in the middle of it. I said, you're going to have really tough relationships. You're going to hear a lot of crap. You're going to hear things in your life that have happened to you that are going to be really devastating. And that's just life. And when you go through that, I will be here to be your support system. I will help you find your birth father because he doesn't know who his father is. I will do anything I can to support you. Um, I can't promise you it's going to be easy. In fact, I can promise you it won't be easy, but I can promise that I'm right here for you. And like, whatever you go through, as long as you'll have me by your side, I'll be there. And as long as you want to be part of this family, we want you as part of our family. And if you ever want to dip, I guess you have that option too. So, um, but yeah, really, like, I talk to him, I dream with him about things. I'll say like, "Oh, do you think that your birth mom's as tall as you are? Do you think her eyes are as pretty as yours? Do you?"
So he doesn't know
Um,
his birth mother?
Not really. He doesn't remember a lot about her. He knows
Ah,
her. They're friends on Facebook.
okay.
Um, but there's not a lot of substance
Yeah.
right now. I look forward to that happening, but he's not real sure. I think it's the rejection thing. Like, I think he's kind of in that place where he's afraid. I'm trying to encourage him to do things he's not ready for yet. And like, he's going to be graduating from high school a year early, which is crazy
Wow.
for a child who's been through what he's been through. And I told him, like, you can invite your birth mom. She can stay at our house. And um, I don't say your birth mom, I say your mom.
Right.
Um, she could stay here and she could go to your graduation. And he's like, I don't think so. But I don't know if it's so much that he doesn't want her to. I feel like it's more that he's afraid she won't come.
Yeah, it could
And
be.
so he would rather it sound like he's saying no than being
Yeah.
hurt by her not coming.
Hmm.
And I ask him that, but
Yeah, he
we've
may
only,
not even
he's,
realize he's doing that,
he doesn't. I think
Yeah.
I'm like way ahead of the thought
Yeah.
process. Like, I know all of the things that he's going to go through and what he's going to eventually is going to happen with him. Um, and so I try to not
Yeah.
go too overboard with it. It was hard because I want him to like know all these things, but um, he's definitely calmed down a lot. He's gotten rid of a lot of anger. I think, I asked him one time about we do these questions. I have this little card thing that I got from, I don't know, it was an adoption place. Um, and it talks about like it'll ask you to like do cards, like ask
Hmm.
each other questions. And I asked him something about what it's like to be, for me to be his mom. And he just said the best thing is that when he's with me, he always feels safe.
Mm,
And I was like, wow, that's probably the best thing you could say, like
right.
he
Wow.
just, that he feels safe. But yeah, he's a super, I mean,
Sounds
all
like
by
it.
himself. Like, it is not because of anything that we have done. He was just that way. Like,
Yeah.
he's got such a great attitude and um yeah, so he's a neat guy.
So have you faced any challenges with him
Oh
and
yeah.
like adopting him?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Just like normal
Yeah,
teenage stuff, or do you think his, the adoption had anything to do with that or being?
definitely. Yeah, he doesn't like to be told that he's doing something wrong. He gets very frustrated. Um, and so I've had to like try to and making decisions. Like, do you want pork chops or steak for dinner? I don't know. What do you want?
Mm,
Well, I'm asking you what you want. And so that's definitely like making decisions on his own was really, really hard. He knows, like, we set a goal, like this is what we're going to be working on. So if you get to a point where you're really getting, because he will get to a point where he was
mm,
really frustrated because I was trying to say, there's no wrong answer, honey. There's no wrong answer. Pork chops or steak.
yeah.
He couldn't, he would not. And I
Yeah.
would keep pork chops or steak. And then he would like get angry. And I'm like, okay, I'm pushing this too much. And so then I finally said, if it's to the point where you really don't want to make the decision, just let me know. Like, mom, I really need you to decide this for me.
Yeah.
Because he was starting to I was
Right.
trying too hard.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
good
And there
that you
was
notice that though,
right.
that you can notice that in him. What do you hope your adopted son gets from you and your family?
just a family. I want him to have love. I want him to just be able to be who he is and figure that out. Like, I just want to be a support system for him. Um, I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted. I hope that he sees how much I want peace for him. I hope he feels seen and heard and loved and valued. I hope he feels safe and that he can share any thoughts of and feelings with me that he has, whether they're good, they're bad, they're ugly, they're hurtful. Um, I just want him to know the truth about everything in his life, whatever that is. I will help him seek that out. That we're here for him forever if he'll allow us to. We'll walk beside him. We'll encourage him along this discovery of himself. We'll provide a safe, open-minded space for him, that we're going to honor his roots, his family, that we love him, and we're really super thankful that he's in our lives. That's what I hope he always knows that.
Yeah. What
So,
advice would you give adoptive parents?
I really think for everybody, it's just to like do the research. Like, it's not about, like, it is actually okay for people to want to have something and not ever get it. It's okay for you to want to have children, but never be able to have children. And I think some people just need to accept that you may not ever be a mom. You may not ever be a dad. You can be a really great aunt, uncle, support system for somebody else if you're not willing to put the needs of the child first. So if you want to adopt and you're doing that for the right reasons, you're actually doing that to provide a safe, healthy home for a child who would not have had that otherwise. I think that that's really great. But I also think that just because we want something, I mean, I'd love to be really skinny, but unless I have surgery or just stop eating or or exercise, there's sacrifices I have to make to get that, And
Right.
so, yeah, I think that's a big thing that I just think it's really, really important for us to remember and to know this child like came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And
I would say they shouldn't have a job. Your baby shouldn't have
exactly,
a job as soon as they come into the family, They shouldn't be a
absolutely.
band-aid. Yeah, definitely. What advice would you give birth mothers contemplating adoption?
Parent your baby. Um, I wish that things could be different. I do. I wish that things could be different with the way that things worked. One of the things that was so crazy shocking to me when we did go to adopt our son is that there was money that we were going to be getting. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, we're okay. We don't need that money. And they said, oh, well, you'll get the money whether you need it or not. I'm like, well, give it to somebody else who needs it. And they were like, you'll get it.
You have to, yeah.
You can do it with it whatever you want, but you guys will get it. And I looked at that first check that I got and I thought, what in the heck is this? Like, if I would have gotten something like this when Anna was a baby, like that would have helped me be able to take care of her. Like, that was my thing. Like, I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then I thought about my son and his grandfather had them for a while. He couldn't do it because he couldn't afford it. There was 5 kids. He couldn't afford to take care of those kids and go to work and make sure they were at school and had a roof over their head and the electric bill was paid. And I thought if his grandfather would have gotten a check like this for all those kids, he wouldn't have even had to go to work. He could have just, it was heartbreaking
Yeah.
when I realized that. And so anyway, I just think that it's all about doing the work and putting the child, like really putting the child first. Like, we need to figure out what is the best interest of the child, and are we on the same path to doing that?
Yeah.
What is the best interest? And knowing the primal wound, like read that book before you make a decision to play. If I would have known the things that were happening and my precious little baby from being stolen from her mother, and like, where am I? And then, I mean, was it confusing for her that I was there and then I was gone? And then she, oh, I can smell her again. And oh, there's that heartbeat. Now it's gone again. And then the next day, oh, there's the heartbeat. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I imagine that having me around had to have helped a little bit, but I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it's just making sure that we always put the interest of the child first.
But don't you think that is the narrative that's out there, is like, think about your baby. Like you said, you want her to have two parents and this and that. It's like, we're not asking the right questions, I don't think,
Yeah, because my sister she was 16 years old and she raised my niece by herself, of course, with the support of her family. She didn't do it by herself. But my sister graduated from college. My niece is extremely successful. She's got a great marriage. She's got 3 beautiful children. She, by all accounts, when you look at her life, she did not remotely go through what my daughter has gone through. And my daughter had 2 amazing, loving sets of parents.
Yeah.
I mean, that girl is loved, like crazy loved. But if you were to see statistically all the things that they've gone through, it's pretty mind-blowing, the differences.
Wow.
So,
well, Jenny, thank you so much for coming on today. And you said a lot of things that I always want to say, and you said it so eloquently. And I love that you have the perspectives that you have too, and just melding those together. And because of that, having the wisdom that you have to be able to see things differently. Just thanks so much for coming on and telling your story and being brave and open
absolutely.
and honest.
Yes. And thank you. Thank you for what you do. Like, I have learned so much, honestly, just by listening to adoptee stories on so many different podcasts. Like, I'm a huge believer that there's never going to be too many podcasts about this because everyone finds I connect so much. It's crazy how much I connect to when I hear adoptees talking. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. So I just, I truly appreciate your whole entire podcast, what you do, and allowing all of the voices to come together is super important.
Yes.
I've actually gotten into talking more because of being an adoptive parent, because being a birth mother, I just wanted to stay under a rock. I didn't really ever get into talking to other birth mothers, and now I do some Zoom calls with birth moms, and it's been so nice. It's been way better than I expected it to be. So I've met some really great friends through it. So
that's awesome. And hopefully this will get out there, and more birth mothers will come forward, because I've just realized that it's just a huge part of the entire story that needs to be told. So so thanks for telling your story and giving permission for other birth mothers to come tell their story as well. So thanks. I'm just amazed at this story and Jenny's insights. And it's just interesting to hear that even though this was an open adoption and she got to see her daughter, that it was still traumatizing and she still had regrets, and how she still saw that the primal wound that her daughter had, even though she was in her life quite a bit. And then I loved how she brought up the foster care system and the money that she was receiving from the foster care system, and how if this child's family, grandfather or mother, was receiving those checks, that maybe these kids could have stayed with their family. Just blows my mind. Thanks, Jenny, for coming on and being so vulnerable and telling your story. Don't forget, if you're struggling with adoption trauma or just feeling stuck in life, Go to somatichealingjourneys.com and look up SMGI and see if you think it might be a good fit for you. Get in touch with me. Also, if you want to tell your story on the podcast, send me an email at mindyourownkarma@gmail.com. As always, take what you need and leave what you don't. And always remember to mind your own karma. I'll see you next time.